Church can mean a lot of different things to all people. Because there's people that go to church every week, often multiple times a week. There's people that go to church twice a year for Christmas and Easter. And there's people that would never even think about stepping foot inside of a church. So church means different things to all people. And some churches are defined by their age demographics. So maybe this church primarily ministers to the older generation and this church to the younger. And why do some churches have 50 people and some have thousands of people in multiple locations? But even though churches differ so much and people attend for different reasons, the same challenge exists within all churches. And that is the challenge of reaching all generations within one ministry or within one organization, mainly within one church. And that is what I'm going to talk about today, the multi-generational church, and why it is necessary to have a multi-generational church in order to raise up leaders and in order to impact the culture with the gospel, no matter where you live. And there's three things I want to talk about today. The integration of different styles of worship that can occur within a multi-generational church, serving together and serving one another among a multi-generational church, and the value of tradition. The first thing we're going to talk about is integrating different worship styles. And worship is often defined with music. So most people, when you say the word worship, you think of music. But really, it's giving, it's tithing, worship through giving. It's worship with community. It's worship in everything we do. Worship should be a lifestyle. And according to Coughlin in his book, Worship Matters, in 2008, most people enjoy the familiar. We get comfortable knowing what's coming. And when things aren't the way they're supposed to be or the way they used to be, people want to know why. And oftentimes, they will come up with reasons why things are changing. And that's the challenge, is when you have a multi-generational church that is serving a younger generation and an older generation, there needs to be a willingness to share different styles of worship through music, even the way offering can be taken. And as long as the church is teaching to their people, that can be done successfully. The second thing that is necessary and why it is so important to have a multi-generational church is this. Different generations can serve together and also serve one another. In his book, Messy Church, in 2012, Parsley wrote, "The family analogy is the best picture of what a healthy and vibrant church community is supposed to look like." If you think about it, families are perfectly designed for discipleship. There's constant access, there's consistent modeling, there's demonstration, teaching and training, and conflict management. And children are raised, parents are matured, and grandparents are valued at the same time. When multiple generations can worship together, the energy and enthusiasm of the younger generation can absorb the wisdom of the older generation. And vice versa. It is so important for a church to have multiple generations serving together, so serving their community and serving one another. A third thing that is a huge value of a multi-generational church is that there is tradition that is still valued. Oftentimes, this generation, the millennials, will associate tradition with religion. But that's not necessarily the case. And a great example of this is the Apostles' Creed, which is read in some churches, and used to be read more. But churches have gotten away from it because this generation feels as it is unnecessary tradition. But the Apostles' Creed is a great way of reflecting who God is and who we are in light of Christ. Driscoll wrote in his book, Radical Reformation, "Christians, however, are supposed to live today in light of yesterday for the sake of tomorrow." And that is the balance. How do we live valuing the things that the older generation values, but taking into consideration the current culture of today, but really focusing in always on influencing people's lives with Christ? That's a tough balance, but it can be done. And the same problems that exist in today's church with different worship styles and people wanting different things within a church is the same thing that happened in the 19th century, the 18th century, and will continue to happen in the future. There will always be different generations together. But we need to fight the temptation to minister to each one separately and be a family. Because when multiple generations worship God together, you can see wisdom and enthusiasm morphing together, and that is a beautiful thing.